Go to AAA.com/plusside.
Body, and she had there's no way she could have had any brain activity, and yet she reported one of the deepest near-death experiences ever recorded. And the physicians support her story. They say, yeah, that, this is what she said, this is what happened, her perceptions of the operating room were accurate. And she saw and heard things which she otherwise should not have been able to see and hear. She also remembers going down a tunnel, hearing her grandmother calling her. She remembers meeting with a lot of people that she knew, some people that she didn't know, didn't recognize. She said everybody looked at their very best. They all looked healthy and happy. And the longer she stayed there, the happier she became, and the more reluctant she was to go back to her body. And she was saying, I don't want to go back. Why should I? And they were saying things like, well, think about your children. You've got 2 children. And said, oh, they'll be fine. Don't worry about it. But her brother-in-law, or her brother, it was her uncle, I believe. He escorted her back to her body. She didn't want to. She said it looked like what it was, dead. Mm-hmm. And but he said that in some sense he pushed her, and simultaneously she felt a pulling from the body. And she said it was like diving into a pool of icy water. She said it hurt. But they shocked her heart twice, because the first time it didn't work. She saw them shock her heart twice, and she shouldn't have been able to see. No, she shouldn't have known that, because sometimes one shock will resuscitate a person. Sometimes it takes 2 or 3. She shouldn't have known it was exactly 2. So she saw something that clearly happened at a time when there's every medical reason to believe that her brain was entirely non-functioning.
Wow. And did that, and it quite often does, change her life afterwards? I mean, it quite often does. When you see something, you can't unsee it. When you experience that, you can't unexperience it. The brain remembers it indelibly. I mean, it really is like it feels like a recent memory all the time.
Well, most people have had a near-death experience considered the central pivotal event of their lives, and they change. Typically, they become more compassionate, they become less materialistic, more concerned for the welfare of others.
More purposeful. Mm-hmm.
More purposeful, and above all, absolutely convinced that this life is not all there is.
And not really that afraid of death.
Oh, yeah. Greatly reduced fear of death as well.
I love in your book you talk about the stages of the Western NDE, and reportedly what people say the most after experiencing a near-death experience. And this is from various studies that have been done. But the most people, if I'm reading this chart correctly, the most people experience peace or joy in the NDE.
Yeah. About 70%.
That's
report that.
Huge. And then the least experience an unearthed, actually life review, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Only about 12% maybe.
Which is interesting because, I've heard other people say, oh, yes, you definitely are going to have this life review. But I didn't experience that in my near-death experience. Explain the life review.
Oh, well, again, it's not it's the least common reported aspect of the NDE, at least in the Western world. It's basically sometimes they'll encounter a mysterious being of light who will ask them, what have you done with your life? Show me the major events of your life. Or the major events of your life will simply be played back, almost like a very rapid movie film. And sometimes people report experiencing not only the way they felt in those central or those important moments in their life, but also the way that other people were feeling as well, which could be positive or negative. So they seem to feel the effects of whatever they said or did upon other people.
That would change the way you live your life. It really would.
Oh, absolutely.
Let's go to the skeptical perspective of that. So for those that say that these experiences of feeling out of your body or entering into a tunnel is due to maybe lack of oxygen, or that they're hallucinations or something, what do you say to that?
The effects of lack of oxygen are well known. They've been well known for many decades. Mountain climbers have typically experienced it. Pilots flying at high altitude have experienced it. And it was even common years ago for medical students to undergo what's called anoxia or hypoxia, which is reduction in oxygen. Basically what they would do with medical students is that they would have them breathe in and out of a spirometer with a carbon dioxide absorber. And so the carbon dioxide would be absorbed even though they were breathing less and less oxygen. And because the carbon dioxide was absorbed, they wouldn't feel like they were suffocating. And they would have the medical students, again, breathe in and out of the spirometer and form some simple tasks, arithmetic or what have you. And what would happen was they'd become increasingly incompetent at these tasks. They'd become disoriented, and then they'd pass out. So in thousands of such experiments on thousands of medical students, no one ever reported an NDE. So again, the effects of lack of oxygen, reduction of oxygen are well known. They're nothing like a near-death experience.
Fascinating. Wow, that is fascinating. I think it's amazing that you can actually replicate these studies, which is incredible. Some of the other things people encounter, 70% of people encounter peace of joy, like we talked about. 60% an out-of-body experience. I checked that. There's a very a lower percentage, like 30% of people entering a tunnel or darkness. And usually that's the most common thing that people associate with near-death experiences, of going to a tunnel, seeing a light. And that's actually very on the low side of reporting, which is very interesting. But definitely the experiencing this feeling of benevolence, this feeling of euphoria, and sometimes even met by images that are peaceful, beautiful, peaceful images. In terms of other evidence, we've covered messages from the dead. We've covered the near-death experience and deathbed visions. What about apparitions? Can you tell us some of your experience apparitions, or some of the research, and what is an apparition for people that don't know it?
Well, an apparition, in the general sense, is just unexplained appearance. So, the Bible is full of apparitions, mostly angels, but the sort of apparitions that I talk about in my book have to do with apparitions of the departed. There's several well-documented cases that were thoroughly investigated by the British and American Societies of Psychical Research, and carefully researched and written about. Apparitions have been seen by more than one person at the same time, from the correct perspective. Animals have reacted to them. They're seen by different individuals at different times. And in appearance, they typically they seem to be solid, just like normal human beings. They're frequently mistaken for actual human beings. Mm-hmm. Living human beings, I mean. They can be reflected in a mirror. And when two or more people are present, when an apparition is reported, Frederick Myers, who's an SPR researcher, he found that in about 2/3 of the cases, more than one person perceives the apparition.
That's right. In this specific case, the Cheltenham ghost,
Hello, I am Jeff Bardinero, President for KeyBank in Dayton. At KeyBank, we are all about looking out for our fellow neighbors. We understand that as a bank, we have both the ability and the responsibility to help others succeed. Maybe they are looking for that car to buy. Maybe they are trying to tackle their growing debt. Or maybe they simply want to do more with what they have worked so hard for. KeyBank is here to meet them in that moment. KeyBank opens doors.
How do you gain a good reputation? By consistently doing the best you can and outperforming the competition. Dayton Door Sales has a reputation for the quality of their garage door installation and repair. Of course, quality depends as much on people as materials, and Dayton Door Sales employs only experienced professional installers and technicians. See for yourself why Dayton Door Sales is the region's leader for garage door service and installation at DaytonDoorSales.com. Integrity, value, experience. That's Dayton Door Sales.
My Skyline order has always been the same. 3 cheese conies, no onion, no mustard. But the other day, a friend got me to try one with everything on it. It was amazing. That little dash of mustard and the snap of those diced onions just blew me away. I didn't know what I was missing. From now on, when I go to Skyline, it's 3 cheese conies all the way, with a side of chili cheese fries. How do you like your Skyline conies? Feeling good. It's Skyline time.
Is your family aware of what's to happen to you after your passing? Are your wishes for a traditional burial or cremation? How will everything be paid for? Woodland Historic Cemetery and Arboretum encourages you to pre-plan these details. Inflation is felt by all of us. Planning ahead prevents emotional overspending and protects your family's interests. Why choose Woodland? Because it's beautiful, timeless, and still available. Advanced planning is the best gift you could give to your loved ones. Visit woodlandcemetery.org to request more information on pre-planning.
WHIO, Dayton Springfield, celebrating our 90th year as the Miami Valley's leading news station.
I'm Will Harris. Our top local story. 2 men are being held on ICE detainers in Logan County after a traffic stop revealed the pair was illegally in the United States.
The arrest came Saturday afternoon on Route 33 near Lincoln Boulevard. The Washington Township Police say neither man spoke English.
WHIO's Jason Michaels. ICE was informed and both were taken to the Logan County Jail. One person is hurt in a Monday morning school bus crash in Piqua. No students were on the bus at the time. The crash between the bus and an SUV just before 10 at Ash and Spring Streets. The driver of the SUV was taken to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. Cops say the bus driver was at fault. Clear and cool tonight. 70-degree weather likely by late week. We're looking at a system on Saturday that bears watching with some showers and possible storms. The complete Storm Center 7 forecast is coming up. A man is accused of shooting at another man in Xenia over the weekend.
Cops say 55-year-old Todd Bethel got into an argument with the victim in a field near his apartment complex off Deer Creek Drive Sunday morning. Officers say Bethel fired a shot at the other man and missed.
WHIO's Ron Otto reporting Bethel is now facing felonious assault and weapons charges.
This is WHIO Continuing News.
A Marine man is in jail today after cops went to his home looking for drugs, and they found a lot more. Officers did find John Adams hiding inside the home on Pinnacle Road Friday and arrested him on several outstanding warrants. They also discovered stolen guns and vehicles on the property. The prosecutor's office is mulling over charges. Our next scheduled news in 30 minutes and immediately when it breaks. I'm Will Harris on 1290 and 95.7 WHIO. Dayton's news and talk depend on it.
Tuesday calls for an increase in cloud cover, but otherwise plenty of spring sunshine and temperatures above average with highs in the upper 60s. I'm weather specialist Nick Dunn for WHIO.
This is the Miami Valley's home for Fox News, the most powerful name in news. WHIO.
How do you gain a good reputation? By consistently doing the best you can and outperforming the competition. Dayton Door Sales has a reputation for the quality of their garage door installation and repair. Of course, quality depends as much on people as materials, and Dayton Door Sales employs only experienced professional installers and technicians. See for yourself why Dayton Door Sales is the region's leader for garage door service and installation at DaytonDoorSales.com. Integrity, value, experience. That's Dayton Door Sales.
The original 5-Star Plumbing Company has been servicing the Miami Valley since 1997. We've been fixing leaks longer than most folks have had access to the internet. Don't be confused with those other wannabes. The original 5-Star Plumbing Company has the tools, the talent, and the trustworthiness to tackle any plumbing challenge. Call the original 5-Star Plumbing Company today at 937-902-6195 or go to 5starplumbingservices.com.
Whatever the weather outside, stay comfortable inside with Tanner Heating and Air Conditioning, where quality and comfort matter the most. Our cost-effective systems for your home or office and planned service will save you some bucks. Bucks. That's right, Sarah bucks. That will keep your wallet happy. Tanner Heating and Air Conditioning, a reliable, local, family-owned company that always produces great results. This is Sarah Tanner. Call 299-2500 or go to tannerhvac.com to schedule today. Tanner Heating and Air Conditioning, a name you can trust.
For This Week in History, I'm Ron Otto. March 9th, 1959, Barbie makes her debut at the American Toy Fair in New York and will go on to sell over 1 billion units worldwide. March 10th, 1940, Chuck Norris is born in Ryan, Oklahoma.
Because that's where the Rangers gonna be.
March 10th, 1876, Alexander Graham Bell tells his assistant Thomas Watson, "Come here, I want to see you," through his new invention, the telephone. March 15th, 44 BC, the Ides of March. Julius Caesar is stabbed to death by Brutus, Cassius, and several other senators in Rome.
Lift 2.
This is a Consumer Warrior Clark Howard Minute.
If you're in college, or let's say you have a kid who's in college or going soon, I want to tell you the hottest thing right now is to go in a college program where you work, not just wherever, but you work in jobs that are in the field of what you're studying, and it lets you stand above the crowd. This is the #1 way for someone to take a college degree and be successful with it after graduating from college. College is so expensive, it's better actually to stretch college to get that degree to 5 or 6 years working while in school, so that when you graduate, you not only have the credential, but you also have experience in the field you want to work in.
Clark is WHIO's Consumer Warrior, and you can hear him during Miami Valley's Morning News on WHIO. WHIO is Dayton's #1 traffic station. We watch it from the air, from the ground, and from your car. Triple Team Traffic with Jake Magnotta, WHIO. This is Coast to Coast AM, live all night on WHIO.
Hey, it's big. Rob Schmidt recently beat CNN in key ratings as millions are tuning into Newsmax. Every night, Rob Schmidt is on Newsmax revealing the truth about Elon Musk's Doge. Tune in tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern and find out why Rob is the hottest person in cable news. Even President Trump is watching, and he says Newsmax is terrific. Reuters Institute reports that Newsmax is now one of the top news brands in America. Find out why. Just check out Newsmax on your cable system. Get Rob Schmidt with Greta Van Susteren, Rob Finnerty, and much more. Download the free Newsmax app on your smartphone or home TV to start watching. It takes just seconds. With Newsmax Plus, you can watch our great shows anytime. Go to NewsmaxPlus.com and start your free trial. That's NewsmaxPlus.com. Make the switch to Newsmax today.
A violent crime is now committed every 24 seconds in our country, and police response times have doubled, which means you need a new way to protect yourself and your family. I'm Rob Chadwick, former head of the FBI's Tactical Training Unit. The USCCA and I have put together life-saving tips that most civilians never get to hear, and we put them all into an updated free resource exclusively for listeners. Text SAFE to 87222 to get instant access right now. If you're serious about protecting yourself and your loved ones, text SAFE to 87222 while there's still time.
Texting enrolls for automated text messages. Message and data rates may apply.
I had the worst dream last night. You were in a car crash, and the kids and I were on our own. We had to move out of the house because I couldn't afford it anymore.
That's awful, hon.
My brother was saying he got life insurance from Ethos. With Ethos, it only took 10 minutes, and he got $2 million in coverage for around $2 a day. It's all online. No medical exam. He just answered a few health questions right from his house.
Ethos, here we come.
Visit GetEthos.com. That's GetEthos.com. Sample rate is a 10-year term life policy for 35-year-old healthy, non-smoking male. Billed monthly.
This is WHIO Sean Hannity, Dayton's News and Talk, WHIO.
Welcome back to Coast AM. I am Lisa Garr. My guest is Chris Carter. He is an Oxford-trained philosopher. He's the author of 4 highly acclaimed books, and his latest book is called The Case for the Afterlife, which really argues that the case for the afterlife can be proven, he says, beyond all reasonable doubt. And this is entirely on the basis of evidence. Evidence, Chris. Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Lisa. How you doing?
I am great and looking forward to this conversation because you really make a bold claim here that there, in your research and in what you've been talking about for decades, is that you are on the search for evidence. Why? Why?
Well, I wouldn't say I'm currently on the search. I was on the search for evidence. It all started during my student days when one of my friends in first year, he wanted to convince me to join him and 3 other graduate students to spend our next year living in an ancient farmhouse that lay just outside of town. It was owned by our college. It was available for us, and I was kind of balking at the idea. I wasn't sure if I wanted to live outside of town. I wanted to be much closer to the college. Mm-hmm. But he told me that the place apparently was haunted, and this intrigued me. And I paid a visit to the house, and I talked to the college carpenter, and I just said, "They tell me the place is haunted." And he says, "Well, I don't know myself, but the carpenter before me, he swore the place was haunted." And so that was enough for me, and I moved in. And to make a long story short, I did see and hear things which I could not readily explain. Nothing terribly dramatic, but it did get me thinking. And when I returned to Canada, I wondered if any serious research had been done on matters such as hauntings and seeming communication with the departed. And so I paid a visit to the local library, and I was surprised by the number of books and journals that have been written on the topic. I was amazed. Particularly impressive was the enormous volume of research so carefully gathered by the British and American Societies for Psychical Research. And the evidence was strong enough 100 years ago to have convinced almost all of the founding members of the British Society and the American Society of the reality of the afterlife, even amongst several who started off as diehard skeptics. they changed their minds and admitted they had been wrong.
There are some religions that believe, of course, in the afterlife and that have for thousands of years, right? I mean, that's part of the religious philosophy of many different types of religions. Why would...
Yeah, absolutely.
Go ahead. If you could tell us a little bit about that. Where did that start? Where did that concept begin?
It must have begun with the sorts of evidence I discuss in my book, with near-death experiences, which reported back in ancient Greece, with deathbed visions. These are reports, people usually in the final days or hours of their life, they report otherworldly visitors, usually departed relatives. Sometimes they describe them as angels. There's also reports of apparitions, which go back to ancient Greece, ancient Rome, ancient China, ancient Africa. And then there's children who claim to remember a previous life. These reports are found not only in the Far East, not only in India, but also among the Australian Aborigines and the Inuit of the Arctic, certain native tribes, native North American tribes, Africa, everywhere.
Everywhere. You even said it could date back as far as the Neanderthals, right? Who you mentioned that in one of your articles.
Well, the belief seems to date back at least as far as the Neanderthals, because they buried their dead with flowers and utensils, presumably for use in the next world. But the other line of evidence, the fifth line of evidence, is probably the most impressive of all, and that's apparent communication with the departed via human mediums. And again, this goes back thousands of years, as I mentioned, as I describe in my book, to all parts of the globe, ancient China, ancient Greece. There's even a story of a medium being consulted in the Old Testament by King Saul, and the medium conjures up the spirit of the prophet Samuel, who tells Saul that he will die in battle the next day. So, I mean, these are ancient reports, and so my book deals with 5 independent lines of evidence, all very different from each other, and all pointing in the same direction, towards the reality of an afterlife.
Fascinating, fascinating. We're going to talk about those 5, but just quickly, where did it start to get debunked? Where did it start to fall out of the norm? If this was truly in many different religions, ancient religions, why did it start to get canceled or deleted?
Well, that's actually peculiar to the West, given our history of conflict, or some apparent conflict or occasional conflict between science and religion. Some people will tell you that Charles Darwin made it intellectually respectable to be an atheist. That's not exactly true. Charles Darwin himself was not an atheist. He was a believer, and he didn't even think that his own theory of evolution supported atheism. He was hostile to that idea. But essentially it has to do with, it's important to remember that most of the so-called skeptics or debunkers are actually militant atheists. You see, one of the fundamental pillars of the atheistic worldview is the doctrine of materialism, the idea that all events have a physical cause, and so that the mind is ultimately produced by the brain. Any evidence to the contrary is a direct challenge to materialism, and this threatens the collapse of their entire worldview. And this, I'm convinced more than anything else, explains their vehement opposition, their consistent attempts to try and debunk not only the evidence for the afterlife, but also the evidence for psychic phenomena such as telepathy.
So let's go into that a little bit, if we can, about that relationship between the mind and the brain. It is fascinating because you said that science says that the mind is produced by the brain.
No, I did not say that. Science does not say the mind is produced by the brain. I said materialism.
Materialism.
The idea, the doctrine, the philosophy, the ideology, whatever you want to call it, of materialism postulates that the mind is produced by the brain. The scientific evidence is all to the contrary.
Okay, sorry about that. So that's one of the things that I'm curious about, because there's obviously a difference, and there's a relationship between the mind and the brain, but there's obviously a difference.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I mean, that's fascinating. It's something that I've read a lot about in terms of our images, anything that we can think or vision comes from the beautiful mind. The brain is just the hardware, right?
Right. Well, chapter 1 of my book is titled The Mind-Body Relationship. And in that chapter, I argue that the evidence indicates that the brain works as a two-way receiver-transmitter, sometimes from body to mind, as in sense perception, and other times from mind to body, as in willed action. So it's really a two-way receiver-transmitter. And the rival hypothesis that the brain produces the mind has been proven false by the data. And what many people don't realize is that there's a lot of evidence to this effect. It's not even necessary to bring in the evidence for survival. Mainstream medicine provides enough evidence, for example, with the phenomenon of terminal lucidity. It's been noted since ancient times that that the symptoms of mental disorder or mental disease or brain injury often completely disappear in the final days or hours before the person expires. Hippocrates, Galen, Cicero, and other ancient writers wrote about this, and they all held the view that as death approaches, the soul, which is basically intact, disengages from the restrictions of a material brain.
Yes, I was just actually at a memorial today that very thing was described in the person right before they passed, where they had an absolute moment of clear awareness prior, after, being in a very induced state for several days prior. Right before the last breath, this amazing man sat up wide-eyed, and his hands made this formation that looked like a chalice, and then he folded them on his chest, and that was his last breath. And it was as if his soul was leaving the body. And of course, the pictures, his daughter snapped the pictures right at that moment, and she snapped images of what looked like the soul leaving the body above him. It was beautiful, absolutely stunning, and very, very, very conscious man too. So it was, as you describe those types of experiences. And you mentioned earlier 5 ways of, in your book, The Case for the Afterlife, talking about the evidence. And one is I'll just mention them first, and then we can talk about them: the near-death experience, deathbed visions, apparitions, children who remember past lives, and messages from the dead. Tell me one of the ones that you want to start with, if you want to start with one of those. What's your favorite?
Well, the single most convincing line of evidence is communication seemingly received through human mediums with the departed, but we can start wherever you like.
That is fascinating to me. Yes, the mediums and evidential mediums, there is such a wide range of people, and it can. Do you feel? I'm curious, Chris. Do you feel that is a gift? Is that a honed technique? Is it something that only a few people do? I'm sure you can tell the people who are real from those who are not. What do you think about evidential mediums? Those that can see evidence?
Well, those that seemingly transmit messages from the departed. You asked if it's a gift or...
Yes.
Like most human skills, I think it's really a combination of innate skill and practice, with practice probably being more important than any sort of innate talent. I think talent is a overrated. I think what really matters when developing skill is a certain type of highly disciplined practice with the intent of improving. So, it's like playing a sport or playing chess or doing mathematics or whatever, or seemingly communicating with the departed.
Right. So, of course, you hone the skill over time, and as you work with it, certain things start to appear that are true. Do you think that you can develop that from just starting with it? I mean, without having any experiences, do you think that's something that you can learn like you would learn in school?
It's hard to say. Mm-hmm. I mean, there was a fellow named George Steed. He was a lawyer, I believe. Anyway, in 1892, William Steed, he discovered that he had the gift of automatic writing. So it was just something that he tried, and he found he could do it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, sometimes I feel that happens to me as well. Things come through when I write that I don't know where they come from. But there's different ways. You have to experiment with what works. So the messages from the other side, how do you tell the real messages from the not real ones? A real medium versus one that hasn't honed their skill?
Well, let's see. Just looking here.
Or maybe you could share some stories about that.
Yeah. Let's see here. I mean, Jesus of Nazareth is quoted by the Apostle John as saying, "Beloved, believe not every spirit, but test the spirits to see whether they are of God." In other words, you have to test the spirits. Sometimes Christians will say this is the work of the devil, but what sort of devil goes around encouraging folks to love one another? What kind of devil, many of these communicators praise Jesus, and messages are benevolent, urging kindness and compassion.
Yeah.
So, but the level of detailed information in the best communications is simply astonishing. But what's even more astonishing is not just facts unknown to anyone present, which are later verified, but in the best cases, the communication is from the perspective of the deceased. It displays aspects of their personality which are recognized by surviving friends and relatives. And some of the most remarkable cases, high-level skills are demonstrated, skills which the medium does not possess, but which required the deceased person communicating years of practice to acquire.
Yes. Oh, can you tell about the chess champion? Can you tell about that? Because that was fascinating.
Oh, yeah. That was, I have almost an entire chapter devoted to a chess game between a living and deceased grandmaster. Yeah, the medium's name was Robert Rowlands. He was a amateur medium. He did not accept payment for his services. But he was approached one day and asked to find a chess champion on the other side who was willing to engage in a game with a living chess master. And so they, I'm just looking for it here.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Looking for the case here.
Yes. And so he was approached by a grandmaster.
Yes, and he found the deceased Hungarian grandmaster, Giza Moroxi. He agreed to play. And he also found, what was his name? Korchnoi. Yeah. Was it Victor Korchnoi? Can't remember his first name.
So there was a chess champion who challenged this medium to find someone from the other side who was a grandmaster and play a game with him, right?
Well, no. There was chess enthusiast Dr. Wolfgang Eisenbeiss. He decided to initiate a chess match between living and deceased grandmasters, and he was able to persuade the world chess champion, Victor Korchnoi, who was then ranked third world, to participate. And he's considered to be one of the greatest chess players of all time. So they found Giza Moroxi, the deceased Hungarian grandmaster. He agreed to play. And so they played over several years, and at one point Korchnoi remarked that he wasn't sure he was going to win. He thought that his opponent's opening was very old-fashioned. It's the only criticism he could make. Other than that, he thought his opponent played perfect chess. And so the chess game is well documented in my book. I even list all the moves on page 132. But even more impressive, it wasn't just the ability to play chess. And again, the medium Robert Rowlands did not know how to play chess. He didn't even know all the pieces. And yet he just received these chess moves dictated apparently by Giza Moroxi from the other side.
That is
the chess game
fascinating.
And it went to 50. Yeah, and he took course on the 52 moves. And there's a physicist, Russell Targ. His brother-in-law was Bobby Fischer, considered to be one of the greatest chess player of all time.
Smart family.
Anyway, this is what Targ wrote. I sent the reported final chess score to Bobby Fischer, who, as I mentioned earlier, lived in Iceland, having been rescued from a Japanese jail by the kindness of the Icelandic government. Bobby wrote to me saying that
Please welcome Brian Kilmeade.
Hi, everyone. WHIO's Brian Kilmeade here, and I am coming to Dayton at the Victoria Theater for my show History, Liberty, and Laughs, also with Fox Nation, Saturday, June 21st. So buy your tickets now at DaytonLive.org, and you can upgrade your tickets for a VIP experience where you can meet before the show backstage and take some pictures. All part of the year-long WHIO 90th anniversary celebration. WHIO, AM1290, and 95.7 FM. Dayton's weather, traffic, and Fox News station.
WHIO, Dayton Springfield, celebrating our 90th year as the Miami Valley's leading news station.
I'm Will Harris. Our top local story. 2 people found dead and 10 others injured Sunday afternoon in a house fire in Cincinnati. Police say at least 3 children were among the 10 injured, many of which jumped from the building to escape, but none were reported to be in critical condition. Fire crews have not yet determined the cause of the fire, and we're now working to learn more about the conditions of those injured. Stocks tumbled on Wall Street Monday on fears of possible recession and tariffs. The Dow Jones Industrials were down 890 points. The S&P down 155 points. The NASDAQ down 727 points. Clear and cool tonight. 70-degree weather likely by late week. Storm Center 7 forecast is coming up. Our next scheduled news in 30 minutes immediately when it breaks. I'm Will Harris on 1290 and 95.7 WHIO. Dayton's News and Talk. Depend on it.
Tuesday calls for an increase in cloud cover, but otherwise plenty of spring sunshine and temperatures above average with highs in the upper 60s. I'm weather specialist Nick Dunn for WHIO.
This is the Miami Valley's home for Fox News, the most powerful name in news. WHIO.
Skyline is now serving up Mike's Hot Honey Conies and Ways. For a limited time, you can order your Skyline favorites with a drizzle of Mike's Hot Honey Extra Hot. It's pure honey blended with chili peppers for the perfect combination of sweet and heat. Proof that some things are just better together. Mike's Hot Honey, Conies and Ways are only at participating Skyline restaurants while supplies last. So come to Skyline today and get your Mike's Hot Honey, Conies and Ways.
Hey, it's Nancy for my friends and family at Square One Salon. The 4-corner focus at Square One drives them in everything they do. And the gift of experience is the best gift of all. It always fits, never expires, and is always in demand. From hair, massages, manicures, makeup, to giving back to our community, Square One believes we all have a permanent place as a member in their family. I know I do. Visit squareonesalon.com. We are Square One.
This is the legendary WHIO.
This is Lou M. Now let's check on morning traffic.
Dayton's only 24-hour news station. Using the power of News Center 7, we have dozens of reporters all over the Miami Valley.
Breaking news in Tip City. This is a live
with one mission, to bring you breaking news when it happens.
News Center 7's Kayla McDermott is live along
Major stories that impact your family.
New Oregon District mass shooting information.
We're the home of Dayton's only all-news morning show, Miami Valley's Morning News.
This is Larry Hansgen.
Then, throughout the day, listen for updated local news every 15 minutes.
Dayton and Springfield's 24-hour news, weather, and traffic station.
When breaking news happens, we stop what we're doing and go wall to wall. For us, there's nothing more important than live, local news on the radio. It's a tradition since 1935.
WHIO.
This is 1290 and 95.7 WHIO, Dayton's News and Talk. The WHIO call letter still means something in the Miami Valley. The original news legends, Lou M., Don Wayne, Jim Baldridge, Gil Whitney. We are standing on the giants of Dayton radio, and we take their legacy seriously. Nothing is as good as the best local news possible. Serving you in your hometown. It's important to us. WHIO was and is the #1 news station in the region. You're listening to the legendary WHIO. Depend on it. This is Coast to Coast AM, live all night on WHIO.
Nori on the Gaia Network. You can check out my show as well on Gaia. It's called Inspirations. You can find it at inspirationsongaia.com. And I've got some great interviews up there. Some 200 interviews. Raymond Moody, I remember interviewing about the afterlife along the topic that we're talking about tonight. And that was a fascinating interview. So check out inspirationsongaia.com, and that's GAIA.com, and Greg Braden and David Wolf and the wonderful Raymond Moody. Lots of great people that I've interviewed. Check that out, and I will be right back on Coast to Coast AM.
One of our new sponsors, Rapid Radios, are the coolest walkie-talkies that are a must-have this year. Rapid Radios are instant push-to-talk devices with nationwide coverage, 100% private and encrypted, a great communication device for the elderly. No subscriptions, just visit rapidradios.com. For a limited time, go to rapidradios.com and you'll get up to 60% off. Free UPS shipping from Michigan. Add code radio and get an extra 5% off.
During tax season, your info travels lots of places you can't control. W-2 arriving from payroll platform 3.
Everything criminals need to steal your identity is on your W-2.
Last call for accountant and home office, 1 minute.
LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points per second.
Tax preparation data centers with service to IRS. All aboard.
If your identity is stolen, we'll fix it guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year with promo code NEWS. Visit LifeLock.com. Terms apply.
What if you could unlock over $1 million in personal and business credit? That's exactly what Ray Reynolds can do for you. I'm talking about protecting your family and building your business with $100,000 in personal or business cash credit. And Ray can help you rebuild your credit score to 750. Ray Reynolds isn't just any expert. He helped the security chief of TRW that became Experian, one of the most trusted credit bureaus. If you're looking to get your finances on track, Ray is the man you should call for a 750 credit score. Call Ray at 800-427-5991. 800-427-5991. Join his live webinars and attend his weekly workshops to learn the insider strategies for hitting your personal and business goals. Ready for a 750 credit score and your first $100,000 in credit? Call Ray Reynolds now at 800-427-5991. That's 800-427-5991.
Welcome back to Coast AM. My guest is Chris Carter. His recent book is called The Case for the Afterlife, and I wanted to read a few of the other titles. He's the author of Science and the Afterlife, Science and the Near-Death Experience, and Science and Psychic Phenomena, The Fall of the House of Skeptics. I get that you welcome skeptics, don't you, Chris?
I'm sorry, what was that, Lisa?
I understand that you welcome skeptics, right? You don't have a problem with people who are skeptical about the afterlife or mediumship or anything having to do with afterlife, right?
Oh, I don't have a problem with them. They've got a problem with me.
Why is that? Well, I mean, other than the obvious reasons.
Yeah. I mean, all four books are attacks on the skeptical fortress. This last one is more focused. I like to say if the first three books were an armada, then this one is a surgical strike. I've been arguing with these people for a long time, and online, face to face, pubs, barbecues, journal articles. I mean, you name it.
But in a way, you have the rebuttal. You really have put together a large body of evidence here. Let's talk about some of the other ones. Deathbed visions. Now, I remember that is a fascinating topic. What is a deathbed vision?
Well, as I was saying earlier, in the final days, hours, minutes before a person leaves this world, they'll often claim to perceive otherworldly visitors, usually deceased relatives, sometimes deceased friends. Sometimes they describe them as simply angels or someone they don't even know, a woman standing there. Sometimes they'll even they'll be confused. They'll express astonishment because they'll say, what's my sister doing here? Mm-hmm. And of course what happened was her sister had died a few days ago and they just didn't tell this person because they didn't want to upset her. Mm. So there's also cases like that. There was a case of a Chinese woman, an elderly Buddhist woman in her 90s. She was dying of cancer. And she told her daughter, they're both devoted Buddhists, and she told her daughter that her husband was calling her to come. But then one day she told her daughter that she was puzzled because her sister was also with her husband, and they were both calling her to come. And she couldn't figure it out. She thought her sister was alive and well back in China. But it turned out that her sister had an aggressive form of cancer and had died a few days previously. Again, they just didn't tell her because they didn't want to upset her. Mm-hmm. But then her daughter explained to her that her sister in China had died a few days previous, and she smiled. She says, "Oh, now I understand."
And she could be. That is so comforting, Chris, to think that our loved ones are potentially reunited. I definitely experienced that when my aunt was passing. She kept asking for her brother. How's Ed? How's Ed? She kept saying. And I knew was getting closer to the end when she was saying that, because he had passed. And she never accepted that when she was more coherent. And then she started to see him. It is a wonderful sign. I think it's comforting to know that you're reunited. I mean, think about that. This, as a philosopher, have you ever thought about your own death and the afterlife and what you would expect or how you would approach that?
Well, I've never been much troubled by the thought that my time on Earth is finite. I view it more as, I suppose, the sense of fascination. I mean, there are plenty of benefits to accepting the reality of the afterlife. For one thing, it changes our definition of what it means to play the long game. I mean, if we think the game ends with our lives, then we may not care as much about things such as global heating or degradation of the environment, because, well, we think we won't be around. But the fact is, we will be somewhere, and the game does not end with the death of our bodies. It continues on in different transcendent realms. So it changes one's definition of what it means to play the long game, but it also is comforting in the sense that, yes, we will see our departed loved ones again, our friends, our relatives, and there'll be plenty of opportunity to continue to grow and develop.
Do you think it's based on... I mean, that's a beautiful thing to say, by the way, that it doesn't end here. If we do continue to witness our loved ones, do we really want to witness our children and their children experiencing a destroyed planet or World War III or anything like that? You really think about that, brings in a level of responsibility, you would think. Do you think that the afterlife is influenced by someone's religion? That do you think that how you think is impacting how you experience the afterlife? Your belief systems.
Well, I don't. I stress in many places that I don't think there's any conflict between the world's major religions and modern evidence. I think there's no conflict at all between modern and ancient revelation. Many of the members of the British and American Society of Psychical Research, the active researchers, were ordained clergymen, ministers, and priests. Mm-hmm. And several of them have stated openly that they find that the evidence supplements and reinforces their faith. It doesn't challenge it. It may expand it in some ways. It may expand their understanding, but it certainly doesn't challenge any of the major tenets of the world's religions, which is that this world is not all there is, and after this life is over, another one awaits.
That was definitely what I experienced. I had a near-death experience, and I know that you write about this in your book as well. And I felt like there was another complete realm that existed simultaneously to this one that we're consciously aware of. But it exists at the same time that we could actually access if we level up our awareness or our level of consciousness. Usually it's preceded by some type of accident that ejects your conscious mind offline, and you really just the unconscious, you're really operating from the unconscious. And that seems to be what I've heard the most of. What about you? What have you heard about the near-death experience, and what stories can you share about that?
Well, I write about that quite extensively, actually. Mm-hmm. One of my books was devoted almost entirely to the near-death experience. There's many great stories